Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you all had a great lunch. And as we had a wonderful start to the day this morning, where we've heard from esteemed panelists on wonderful insights about the zero emission trucks and how are we looking at business models and operational insights. Now we're moving on to much more critical discussions. The next, I think, firstly, I would like to call Manojna Polisetti and Wasim Mir from WRI India to discuss and deliberate more on the FIZIT tool, which has been launched earlier this morning. The FIZIT tool is a financial impact assessment for zero-emission truck, which is FIZET. And the tool assesses financial implication for truck owners to transition to battery electric trucks. I would now like to invite Manojna and Wasim to come on the stage, please. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, all. Today morning, we had the opportunity for the opening plen today to launch the financial impact assessment for zero-emission truck tool. Before we dive into the serious business of zero-emission trucks, let me warm us up with a few questions. Why do you think the e-truck was nervous to go to the doctor? Any guesses? It was because it was afraid to hear him say it requires a battery replacement. Why was e-truck so regular to the gym? Because it was keen to trim its capital costs. One last. Why did the e-truck break up with the diesel truck? Because it was toxic. Now, jokes aside, these punchlines really capture the real world challenges we hear about all the time and still the need to transition for better environmental and health impacts. That's exactly why we developed the FIZIT tool. It's designed to capture the nuances and provide a clear picture of the financial viability of adopting an electric truck for truck owners and fleet operators considering a transition. FIZIT enables detailed analysis of capital operating costs and revenue while offering insights into earnings and long-term financial and commercial viability. With that, let me hand it over to my colleague Wasim Mir, who will walk us through the tool.
Thank you, Manojna. I'll jump right in. You can find the FIZIT tool on WRI India website. Here you will get two files. The first file is the technical note, which contains the methodology, the assumptions, and the instructions to use the tool. And the second file is the macro-enabled Excel tool. Once you download this tool, after opening it, it will take you to the user guide sheet. On the user guide sheet, you will get the brief introduction about the tool. Now, in order to go to the dashboard of the tool, you need to scroll down and click on the Start button. Once you click on the Start button, it will take you to the user guide and user inputs and output dashboard sheet. Here you have two segments. One is the user inputs, which is on the left side, and then on the right side, you have output dashboard. User inputs contains capital inputs and operating parameters, and the user outputs contains outputs like payback period, total cost of ownership, etc. And this is dynamic. This will change in real time as you change the user inputs. You can clear the presets. We have already created a 55-tonner use case for your ease. You can modify it or create your own scenario to model different scenarios. Now, if you want to go into more granular details, then you have to click on the secondary inputs button, which will allow you to enter more granular details like the battery-related inputs, moratorium period, etc. And if you want to model different policy scenarios, then you can click on policy inputs button, policy levers button. Here you can model different policy scenarios and see how the outputs change. So we invite you to explore the tool, test the different scenarios, and share your feedback with us. With that, I'll hand it back to Manojna. Thank you.
Thank you, Wasim. To close, I want to bring us back to the bigger picture. The FIZIT tool is a way to build confidence in the transition to electric trucks. It shows us what's possible today and what levers can accelerate adoption in the near future. We warmly invite you all to explore the tool, test different scenarios, and share your feedback with us. It will help us refine the tool. We are also planned to keep updating the tool as the landscape evolves, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manojna and Wasim. You all have a QR code on your tables to scan the tool and download the tool for your working. Now, next up, we have a short video by Smart Freight Center, which is basically looking at reducing freight emissions, they say that it starts with accounting. Hearing from industry leaders like TCI, Mahindra Logistics, and CJ Darcel, they share their experiences with emissions accounting and how these can pave way for zero-emission trucking in India and abroad. Let's watch the video together.
Tracking emissions is the first step in the journey towards zero-emission freight. To decarbonize logistics, one must understand where emissions come from. Emissions accounting enable businesses to measure, report, and take necessary actions to reduce emissions. At Smart Freight Center, we enable consistent emissions tracking via GLEC framework because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed can be decarbonized.
For us at TCL, emissions accounting has become a strategic compass. It helps us to identify hotspots, evaluate transport choices for our customers, and most importantly, align with our customers' sustainability goals, which is the most important aspect as far as reduction of GHG is concerned. And zero emission trucking is one of the major or the best ways to approach in the reduction of emissions.
We believe that whatever gets measured gets tracked, right? And that's where today I think I can proudly say that entire CJ Darcel Logistics emissions are mapped. We know if you would ask me for the last 3 years, year on year, what were our emissions, we could provide it to you, right? To the extent that we've started giving invoices to all our clients when they get that this particular movement had generated this much of emissions, so that they are also made aware that what is their contribution to it.
At Mahindra Logistics, we designed shipment level emission analytics platform using GLEC framework. The methodology, accredited by Global Logistics Emission Council, help us and other LSPs, transporters, shippers to report much more accurately shipment level emission intensity from road, rail, air, ocean, and logistic hubs, using activity-based formula from well to will and taking payload capacity into consideration.
In the race to zero emissions, data is our compass, not just our map. Whatever gets measured gets managed, and whatever gets managed gets transformed.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, the Smart Freight Center team, for this. And I think this is what shows that everyone is working towards a single vision and trying to, by piecemeal basis, trying to make this vision a reality. So a big round of applause for that. Our next session particularly exciting as it focuses on future pathways for enabling transition to ZETs in India through discussion of smart corridors and technologies for zero-emission trucks. This session will bring together a diverse set of stakeholders from government, charge point operators, DISCOMs, and logistics service providers to discuss challenges, opportunities, and innovations in enabling smart corridors for zero-emission freight. To guide us through this engaging discussion, I'm delighted to introduce the session host and moderator, Mr. Abhishek Murli, Associate at RMI, and Shri Shirish Mohindru, Transport and Infrastructure Advisor, GIZ. But before I hand it over, let me take a moment to welcome our esteemed panelists for this session. Shri Sunil K. Sharma, GM Sustainability and Clean Tech, BYPL. Shri Deepal Shah, Country Head, BRUG. Shri Lalit Chauhan, Country Head, Microgrid Labs, India. Shri Abhijit Sinha, Program Director, National Highways for Electric Vehicles. Shri Ashok Goyal, MD, BLR Logistics. A very warm welcome to all of you, sir. Over to you, Abhishek and Mr. Shirish, for the session. Thank you. I also invite Sanya from Smart Freight Center to please come and join on the stage.
Hello. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So first of all, it's a privilege to be here amongst all the industry leaders, amongst government folks, and basically everyone who has been driving the success story of India's zero-emission trucking adoption. And before I start, I would like to thank Niti Aayog and their leadership, various government dignitaries, and all the members here for 3 successful years of eFast. So my name is Abhishek Murli, and I work with RMI. So RMI has been working in India since 2016 to advance the clean energy transition goals of the country. Our zero-emission trucking work, we work on both a national and subnational level at various initiatives providing technical assistance. So at the national level, we have been providing technical assistance for various reports published by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor. Recently, we also co-hosted a senior leadership roundtable with the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, which was chaired by the Honorable Minister Shri Nitin Gadkari and various senior leaders from the industry. We have also authored a lot of thought pieces on finance, policy, and we have been working with the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways for advancing zero-emission truck deployment at ports. At the state level, we work with states such as Tamil Nadu and Telangana to accelerate state-led zero-emission trucking accelerators, wherein we provide technical assistance on increasing zero-emission trucking adoption. So I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving us this opportunity. And I would like to set some context around accelerating zero-emission trucking deployment, what technologies are available, and what are some considerations as we go into developing these corridors. So we'll begin by looking at some identification that has already been done by the government, which has given a good policy direction. We will then look at technologies and role of infrastructure planning, and as well as understanding infrastructure and cargo movement for ZET-ready corridors. And finally, what are the role of stakeholders as we go into, the actual deployment? So policymakers have already identified various high priority routes that should be targeted for ZET deployment. So a recent report by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor has identified the top 10 ZET corridors from an initial list of almost 200 corridors that are right now in India. And this was done through analysis of traffic data, grid infrastructure, cargo assessment, as well as various stakeholder interactions. So what this tells us is that while initially there was a lot of discussion around where should we go, the government has put out a lot of thought into what should be a targeted effort. The Ministry of Heavy Industries has also released the top 20 trucking highways as part of its guidelines. And these are the highways which should be prioritized for PM e-drive subsidy for EV public charging stations. So encouragingly, as you can see, 9 out of 10 corridors from both lists are overlapping. And what this tells us is even within the different facets of the government, there is a building consensus on what sort of corridors should be targeted and which should be prioritized. What these do is these send a clear policy signal to all of us present in the room that if we target over here, as a collective effort, we can advance zero-emission truck corridor development. So several key technologies can be deployed on these corridors, and each of them have different TCOs, different pros and cons, and they also have different use cases. So if you look at, for example, ultra-fast charging or high-powered fast charging, these are very useful on dense corridors where you'll have a lot of zero-emission truck deployment that can increase asset utilization. Whereas something like swapping or induction charging is also very useful for closed-loop routes such as close to ports, and where you can utilize the very predictable nature of movement. Something like hydrogen fuel cell trucking technology, which has also been a talk amongst a lot of stakeholders these days, is very useful for applications which have corridors close to hydrogen production sites that can lead to lower cost of fuel. It is important to note that TCO is just one aspect of this. And I say one aspect because if you look across the board, any technology that is reaching scale is leading to a reduced TCO on a per truck basis. And we must then look at technologies where it is very easy for us to move from planning to scaled phase. And so some technologies such as fast charging can be scaled very quickly. And some technologies such as hydrogen fuel cell trucks will take some time. So the key message that I want to sort of propagate here is that it is important to pick a technology from where you can go from planning to scale while also balancing the needs of various use cases. Regardless of technology though, at any corridor it is important to understand what sort of infrastructure is available to us and what sort of cargo movement is happening on these corridors. Understanding this will allow us to find out where the available infrastructure is, which cargo can be prioritized for early ZET deployment. So here you can see an analysis that is conducted for the Chennai-Bangalore corridor, and I would like to point out some key factors that should be considered. So if you look at transmission lines, both 400 kilovolt and 765 kilovolt, these are evenly distributed across the corridor. And this means you can actually save costs when trying to deploy transmission lines for your charging station. Substations, while easily available in the first, let's say 100 kilometers on each side, we start seeing limited coverage near Krishnagiri and Vellore. Now, why is this important? Because for this corridor, Vellore and Krishnagiri are somewhat high demand centers, and they are very useful for developing en-route charging. So this also sends a good policy signal to, let's say, developers and discoms to prioritize grid infrastructure upgrade at these positions. If you look at ZET readiness, we are already seeing a lot of industry players over here are deploying pilots along this very high frequency corridor. And these are showing easy to electrify use cases. So this also makes it a very prime candidate for corridor development. And finally, understanding key goods which are moved. So perishables and parcel loads are some of the major movements over here. And what we have also seen on this particular corridor is trucks that move here more often than not make very predictable movements in terms of round trips, in terms of daily driving distance. So there's a lot of stability here to develop infrastructure and to deploy ZETs. De-risking investment into this infrastructure is hence very important. Now, no matter what technology we choose, the initial utilization of these assets will be very less. And finance is a very important thing for how we make sure that these projects are not shelved during these periods of low utilization. So what we see is during the initiation phase, when you're planning for this, blended finance tools such as risk-sharing facilities or viability gap funding with public finance institutions will really reduce risk and attract commercial tenders. Others, such as subsidies that we're already seeing, concessional land that's provided, a good revenue sharing agreement, are able to lower upfront costs and support early deployment. During the scaling of deployment phase, one model that we believe will work is a very strong public-private partnership. And in the initial stages, this will benefit a lot from higher public sector involvement. This can also take the form of various annuity models such as operational maintenance or hybrid annuity models. And these can actually reduce the upfront capex that the developer puts. But if we look at maturity and scale, one of the major models that will be of a lot help is a build, operate and transfer model. And we are seeing a lot of success of this, for example, in Kerala, where the Kerala State Electricity Board is operating a BOT model for upgrading its chargers. So in this model, land is provided at a nominal rate, and the developer is responsible for upgrading the infrastructure. So what charge point operators can do is engage in more PPPs with the public sector. DFIs can explore blended finance instruments and other tools that can mobilize private capital. While state and municipal corporations can craft tenders, but they can also be actively involved in grid infrastructure readiness. So stakeholders across the value chain hence will have a very important role to accelerate corridor development. What we see for central government is they can allocate funding and they can also play an active role in deploying the infrastructure themselves. Fleet operators can identify key cargo types and what are the fixed routes that can be operated on. Charge points and discom operators can look at what are the peak loads, what are the grid upgrades that are needed. And as I mentioned, for financiers, a mix of blended tools, PPP participation, and BOT models can play a huge role in de-risking investment. So with that, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us today, and definitely looking forward to some very valuable insights. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for sharing the great insights and the great research to the ZET parts. We will build on the discussion onto these topics, and thank you very much and welcome all of you for this great event. I know, the post-lunch sessions are generally difficult and most of the tummies are full and the minds are generally drifting, but we will try to make this as interesting as we can. To understand the larger perspective to the diverse audience, I just want to raise your hands. Just want to understand, how do you feel about this larger level EV transition in India? How many of you are very optimistic? How many of you are skeptical? How many of you are neutral? How many of you are still thinking about jalebi? Okay, great. Thank you. Just joking. Okay. So now what we'll try to do is we'll try to keep the flow. We'll have a short round of introduction. We'll have an opening statement from each of our panelists, 5 to 7 minutes. I mean, 5 to 7 minutes in collective. And then we'll have a specific questions to each of the panelists. We have a great flow today. There were representation from the government side, from the Principal Scientific Advisor of India. There were scientists, Ms. Preeti was there. But due to last minute cancellations, she had to withdraw her name. But now we will follow the flow in such a way that we'll have some understanding from the planning side. From planning perspective of the infrastructure, we have Mr. Abhijit Sinha, who is the program director for NHEV. Then we'll have understanding from Lalit, who represents here as the microgrid labs. Then we will discuss about the power through the DISCOMs, to the representation of Mr. Sunil. And then we'll have a discussion through the charging tech with Deepal. And then we'll follow on the finally end users, which is BLR Logistics, Mr. Goyal. I'm sorry, I'm Sanya. We will follow into the discussions of the power. I'm extremely sorry. Okay. So just a very quick round of introduction from each one of you. And I would also like to answer one question. In tweet's length, what is your vision for India's ZET corridor by 2030? We can start with you, Sunil. A brief introduction and then the answer to the question.
Thank you. I represent BSES Yamuna Power Limited. So we are part of distribution business. We are supplying electricity to more than 2 million customers in central and eastern parts of Delhi. And recently, apart from power distribution, we have ventured into charging business also. We are putting up our own chargers in collaboration with various industry players and a lot of partnerships. So we have been tracking this development of EV charging from 2018-19, and a lot of studies have been undertaken in collaboration with GIZ. We did with PRDC, and we tried to project the load. So also a lot of bus electrification is happening. So why this is of interest to us, or why DISCOM has to focus on this, is because the power distribution infrastructure is a very critical infrastructure. The space has to be allocated, and there are very limited avenues for augmentation in certain cases. And also it's a very capital intensive setup. So we have to be very careful in planning on various upgrades. So we have been tracking these developments in terms of bus depots. So a lot of studies have been undertaken. Recently PFI has done a study where we have tried to find out how much load is going to be added and what DISCOMs need to do. Same way this trucking business, once it develops, so it's going to put up a lot of capital addition requirements, which ultimately gets reflected into your consumer tariffs. So DISCOM has to carefully plan the infrastructure in view of all these developments. So it has to know where this load is going to come up and where these corridors are to be planned. The key difference between trucking and buses, we feel, is the bus load is pretty, skewed towards your shift changes, and it is coinciding with the peak durations. But hopefully for trucking, I think it would be uniform and it may not be adding on to our peak demand. So what we foresee is there's going to be a lot of load that is going to come up because buses are limited and trucks population is quite huge. So DISCOMs have to be doing their resource adequacy studies properly in collaboration with transport authorities where this load is going to come up. So the load addition requirement is going to be huge. So my suggestion on this forum is, as a distribution company, you can take care of billing and asking for regulated tariff, coming out with demand response program, so that demand is under control. But it would be more towards core transmission network development. So it has to go in hand in hand with transmission corridor deployments for this.
Thank you. So we'll try to keep it as a tweet length vision to really upload it on the tweet possibility. Yes, Sanya. A brief introduction and the answer to the question.
Hi everyone, I am Sanya. I am part of Smart Trade Center India. And when you talk about corridors, the first thing that pops into my mind is the work we do in the data partnership program. It is all about how we scale use cases to corridor level scale up cases. And I will talk about it from the lens of a think tank and a knowledge partner who works with the industry closely. The amount of attention, the amount of interest we have been getting from the industry regarding this approach has been humongous. It is more around the fact that if we look at these use cases from a corridor perspective and make it more economically viable for multiple shippers around, that's what makes the best case for corridor deployment. And that is the lens we are going forward with through our data partnership program, and also bringing together shippers to aggregate demand. That is what the focus should be to make corridors work. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Lalit.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Shirish. Thank you, everyone. So I am part of an organization called Microgrid Labs. We specialize into fleet electrification. So we provide the consulting services, and we also have the software around the whole fleet electrification. So how we are working with all the different stakeholders, the fleet operators, the banks, and the vehicle OEMs and the authorities. So we are providing them with the consulting service in the area of deployment planning and as well as in the operational planning. So we worked with WRI back in 2022, where we helped the BMTC, the Bangalore Transit Authority, with the deployment plan, where we helped them in doing the route fit, the depot fit, and the grid fit analysis, so that they can deploy their buses. Similarly, we are working within GIZ under the Sumaka project in the city of Trivandrum, Kerala, where we are doing the operational analysis for them in terms of the route planning, route redesigning, and then making sure that every bus should get the required kilometers proportionally, and they should not lose upon any of the revenue because of the charging or infrastructure. So this is how we are working with everyone. So our prime objective is to help every customer, where since this electrification is a huge and a capital intensive exercise. So we are helping that this is a data driven, they should take a data driven approach where they can see and take all the risk out of the system before they buy any vehicle or chargers, or they should not get into something where they are stressing the grid, like what Sunil sir has just mentioned. Thank you.
Mr. Goel.
So I'm Ashok Goel from BLR Logistics. So I represent the service provider side. So we were talking about corridors. So basically, as a service provider, we would like to see the corridors which are without any obstacles on the route. So I think I'll be getting a lot of expertise, experience from what you all are going to do, and our problems which you face on the highways. And to answer your first question, when you asked about electric vehicles, we bought the first vehicle last year, and I was not very keen that time. But over a period of 1 year now, like last September, we bought September again. I feel the adoption is going to be much faster than which I had expected. I was thinking about 5 years down the line, but I think next 2 years you'll see a lot of people adopting EV vehicles.
That is very good to hear. Mr. Sinha?
Namaskar. I am Abhijit Sinha, National Program Director of Ease of Doing Business. I am here because of my additional charge with the National Highway for Electric Vehicle, and I represent India's premier tech piloting agency, Ease of Doing Business, which only does pilots into emerging technologies like drone, electric mobility, hydrogen, and much more. My background is a banker. I had to be working with IndusInd Bank, and then in a distant consulting relationship, we worked in 2014 to 16 with World Bank. Prior to taking this challenging position of electric mobility, I did 2 pilots of National Population Register digitalization with Aadhaar, that is UIDAI that time, and integrated management for critical childhood illness. Then I worked with the Citizen for Accountable Governance team of Prime Ministers in 2014 parliamentary elections. In 2019, I worked with Main Bhi Chaukidar campaign. And 2024, I'm working with Viksit Bharat. I'm also Viksit Bharat National Master Plan Brand Ambassador. In my tenure of last 10 years as Ease of Doing Business Program Director, the mobility pilot that we did, which is known as National Highway for Electric Vehicle, has done 3 technical trials, Delhi to Jaipur, Delhi to Agra, and recent one is Chennai to Trichy, which was specifically for truck. During these 3 trials, almost all emissions, critical difficulties which was brought to us as a difficulty of doing business was resolved, other than one pilot which was inserting a battery into a car to make it swappable and technically swappable. Nothing has failed as of now. Recently, we opened a 500 crore instrument, which is on the delivery mode with the 3rd pilot of Chennai Trichy, which was specifically on truck. This instrument we will discuss during the course of the conversation. But in previous 2 segments of Delhi Jaipur and Delhi Agra, first electric bus, then electric car, then electric bus and electric SUV, long range SUV, and 3rd trial was on the electric trucks. 4th trial we are expecting in 2026 is with hydrogen trucks and LNG and electric trucks. In this trial, we are expecting next year to also compare swappable electric battery trucks and chargeable electric battery trucks. Thank you.
Mr. Shah. Thank you, Mr. Sinha.
Thank you very much. I am Deepal Shah. I am the representative of Brugge E-Connect. I am country head for Brugge E-Connect in India business. In general, basically, I am a professional of high voltage power transmission and distributions. I also involved in the past for the RF feeder infrastructures, for the wireline and wireless infrastructures. Since last 4 years, I am connected with high mobility, high power charging systems, mainly for electric trucks, buses, for India and developing countries. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists. Now I'll keep the flow as I discussed. I'll start with the planning part of it, the major infrastructure part. I'll start with Mr. Sinha. You are as a program director for NHEV. What do you feel how NHEV is preparing India's highways to enable electrification? This is apart from the passenger EV, largely for the HDVs and the ZETs. And if you can also share your experiences direct to the earlier Delhi-Jaipur corridor.
Okay, so just to put in perspective to why these pilots were triggered is because of 2 major reasons. Is profitability was very challenging of infrastructure, and infrastructure was proven to be the core of electric mobility. And second, the ownership decision was still individual until and unless National Highway Electric Vehicle started. So we focused how we will be able to make the infrastructure profitable. And second is the ownership decision of buying an electric vehicle should not remain with people. It should remain first with institution and then it should transit to people. In this institutional adoption and how we will be able to make large companies, large transactions and large deployments possible, that was the core. In last 2 sectors, in 2 pilots, first Delhi, Jaipur and Delhi, Agra, I'll sum up in one line, is definitely has given a technical solution that if your vehicle shut down on e-highway, on particularly the National Highway for Electric Vehicle, within 30 minutes we will be able to give technical backup along with a vehicle and a mounted battery which will be able to charge you technically and which primarily have your detail, so the connector will also match with you. Second, the utilization of charging infrastructure before National Highway Electric Vehicle was only 3% on a pan-India average, which we brought up to 30% from day one. Very simple, it is a binding contract that we proven to be happening in Blue Smart, Green Cell Mobility, and now we are planning with fleet operators who are coming from the truck sector. Third is cost of vehicle. So cost of vehicle, reducing cost of vehicle, technically there was only one position, is to make subscription possible of battery, and that we made in second trial with Delhi Jaipur with MG Motors, and now MG Motors has, I think, opened the model into retail with their 2 of the models. Currently we are working on the subscription of battery for trucks, expecting it to be open by end of this year. Last is infrastructure break even. Everybody knows how much petrol pump is earning. What is the cost? How is the financing model? What is the design and nitty-gritties of building a petrol pump? But before National Highway Electric Vehicle, nobody knew how does a charging station look like and when it will get funded. So 36 months is the time. It maximum in some conservative areas, you can see 40 months to 45 months it reaches to break even. 2 stations which we prototyped in Gurgaon have already reached to their break even. I joined them as an independent director. After the break even, I have recently resigned from their board. And other segments which are very important for all of you to understand that would be helpful for electric deployment is the state upstream infrastructure. It's a ease of doing organization. People only come to me with difficulty of doing business. No appreciation, no credit, no matter what you do. That difficulty came multiple times that discoms are not ready. They're taking a lot of time to give connections. So for upstream infrastructure, we went to Finance Minister. Finance Ministry has now recently included digital infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and also electric infrastructure in the National Infrastructure Development Plan, giving 1.5 lakh crore rupees interest-free loan to state government for 50 years for any project which they wish to use with the discom to proceed and to spend on the transmission line. So it was our difficulty. We needed 1 megawatt charging connection from each state at 264 locations. Pan-India took over 5,000 kilometers and no state government was ready. No discom was ready. Even after all furnishment of all papers, our waiting period was 6 to 7 months. In some cases, 1 year. This infrastructure fund would be able to give that. Charging point operators, charge point operators. 4 very difficult propositions which we created into last 8 years is we expect a charge point operator to bring land on a highway, power, amenities, footfall, and then real-time support system to keep the infrastructure up. Every 50 kilometer national highway electric vehicle is coming up with a 4.5 acre PPP built infrastructure of charging station where land, power, amenities, food court, safety, and real-time engineer up to 200 staffs are there to keep your infrastructure. It's a co-working space for all of you. Fleet operators. Fleet operators has a offset difficulties. Infrastructure is what they are developing at their own. We took it at our station so that fleet operators can do their planning. They can connect with us and they can also conduct trials. We are currently running on 4 major trials with trucks and buses. Green Cell Mobility and Nuogo and NHEV. We work on more than 16 highways where infrastructure is primarily owned by NHEV and vehicles are owned by Green Cell Mobility. Roadside assistance is another problem with fleet operator, and also the toll and parking. So tolling and parking is one, roadside assistance, offset of infrastructure is what we offer to fleet operators. Policy. Standards, specification. It was first organization, National Highway Electric Vehicle, which compared a global benchmark of German highway, which is 24 crore rupees per kilometer, the one which Germany has prototyped between Berlin and their lead bank interchange, was compared to in India 1 crore rupees per kilometer. Last is financing. In financing, as of now, we could only open 2 instruments. One is 5,000 crore rupees for the entire Bharatmala and Sagarmala, 5,500 kilometer upgradation. And second, we have recently opened 500 crore rupees, which is a viability gap funding for only trucks. Both of these instruments are live. They are open for your scrutiny, for your suggestions and modification. 2 more organizations we have worked with is Ministry of Road Transport and Highway and also with Ministry of Power. In Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, the toll concession is very well taken by WRI, and I believe that this would be one of the biggest gift that this forum and WRI will be able to give if Ministry of Road Transport and Highway in some time will be give complete toll waiver. Upgradation of, I think in your presentation, it was HAM, hybrid annuity model was mentioned by the previous speaker. Upgradation of HAM is already pilot and prototyped in a derivative model called annuity hybrid e-mobility. So now in some time from now, you can expect Ministry of Road Transport and Highway would be able to take a decision that whether the upgradation of e-highway would be done by raising the toll fees on each toll, or it will be done by giving land pieces to do the non-revenue work, so that pan-India charging can be 10 to 12 kilowatt hour. In the previous session, you also discussed one nation, one tariff. So it is also under process. If it is happening to be, it is going to be either one of them. Either the toll charges is going to increase to upgrade the highway, or NUT hybrid e-mobility will be able to do a large land piece of around 5 acre to give a uniform charging 10 rupees to 12 rupees per kilowatt hour to all ecosystem. Power Ministry was the first to propose 500 kilometer in 2019. Before even the first guideline of Power Ministry came, NHEV proposed this. That time we were not aware that which ministry is going to be the parent ministry. So we went straight away to Gadkari ji that we want to do the trial. Then the trial happened, Power Ministry guideline came, then MHI Ministry become the main ministry for this. And last is Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance has recently, what I said, for infrastructure has done a very huge work. We expect in coming time, all state governments who are facing this problem of infrastructure fund for discoms and for other communities to bring the transmission charges up to the charging station would be able to use National Infrastructure Development Fund. 3G station, I will speak later.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I'll come to you, Lalit. Building on the insights which Mr. Sinha shared, how do you feel the importance of the data with respect to the planning part of it? You were discussing in the morning, you mentioned about your Carlstead project in the USA. How this all that for the fleet planning, the freight side of it, and then the charging point operators and the charging scheduling and all, how the data part of it, how you're taking this up and your experiences, if you can share.
Yeah, thanks. Just further adding to what Abhijit sir has just mentioned about the planning part. So currently we are working in a CalStart project in US. So we are working with around 200 fleets. So there in this whole planning, what we call is as an integrated planning, where we see as a 3 aspects. One is from the fleet operator point of view, then the charge point operator view, and the third is the grid view. So the fleet operator, their decision majorly revolves around which vehicles are suitable for their operations, where they have to transition from the gasoline or IC vehicle to electric vehicle. Then what battery size they should pick for the vehicle to cater their operations, and then what charging strategy they should adopt, whether they should focus only on depot charging, which they have to build by themselves, or they can rely on on-route charging coupled with the depot charging, or can they go completely on-route charging depending and having a binding contracts with the charge point operator. Now the charge point operator, their decision majorly revolves around the economics, like where to deploy these chargers, how many chargers to be deployed. Every fleet operator would need a different charging power. So what power mix the CPU should deploy. So these are the areas where a CPU has to take a decision. For fleet operator, the high charger availability is the prime factor, because he is catering to his operations, where he has to answerable to his end users for timely delivery of the material, where the CPO is responsible for or they expect the high utilization of their chargers. It should not happen that they have put the chargers but they don't have the utilization of the chargers, as sir mentioned. Then the third one is the grid, when grid has to provide the power. So grid usually wants to distribute this charging to the different locations first. Second, they want to stress out the grid. They want to push this charging to the non-peak hours. Every discom has a different tariff structures, and fleet operators are not aware of these structures of tariff unless they get into this. Then they see, oh, my cost of charging is actually what I expected is different, but in actual I am getting a different altogether the bills from the cost of the charging. So that is why we always say that this should not be done in silos. It should be an integrated planning, all 3 put together, and then this can become a more practical approach and a more scalable. So it's an integrated planning rather than doing it in a silo, like CPO is doing separately, fleet operator is doing separately, and then grid is suffering altogether without talking or without having any insight about the load profiles or or the type of vehicle or the batteries that a fleet operator is picking. So this is where we say that everyone can gather their data. They can do all this. We provide simulation softwares, and we also provide the services. So they can use any of the platforms or any of the software tools that they want, and they should do a data-driven approach first and then take a decision.
Thank you, Lalit. With this, I would like to come to you, Sunil. Discoms will be the backbone for the ZETs. As Mr. Sinha has already mentioned about the problems with respect to that, and overall what he faced, also the problems with the tourist corridors. How do you see this? Discoms can plan and strengthen this complete grid infrastructure with respect to the high charging hubs, and also with the discussion with respect to the coordinating with the charge point operators and overall creating that ecosystem?
Yeah, so
especially on these corridors, if you say.
Yeah, so we were discussing previously that how technology is going to evolve and how much charging load is going to come up. So Discoms should be able to undertake these studies independently also with regard to tracking how much load is going to come up. So the government should be able to guide these state Discoms through some inputs that this is the technology track that would happen. So till now we are not very clear how much e-tracking would be there and how much load is going to come up, at which locations would be suitable. So a lot of studies need to be undertaken before we come out with our tweaking our long-term load planning, network enhancement planning. And previously also I discussed, because this e-tracking is going to add up a huge load. So to add this sort of infrastructure, there is a need to have a transmission dedicated corridors along with it. Of course, the connection part and energization part, Discoms can handle. But the infrastructure requirement is going to be huge. So the planning studies have to be undertaken, and we need to really interact with prospective e-tracking partners, what their thought is. So as of now, Discoms don't know much how much load is going to come.
Just on a follow-up thing, based on your current urban experience, how do you see the collaborative nature with respect to the CPOs currently? How do you do it? I mean, how the current collaborative nature exists with the experience in Delhi?
Yeah, so similar kind of thing that is evolving in Delhi is bus depots. So we have assessed their load behavior, as my partner was suggesting that it coincides with our peaking demand for buses. But for trucks, we don't know the pattern and how this thing is going to evolve. But we have gone ahead with detailed studies. We have partnered with PFI, so very soon the report is going to come out. We have, there's a power sector development fund which we can tap into and try to develop battery storage which can mitigate these load additions. So smart metering, demand response programs, we can engage bus depots or other CPOs, large concentrated loads, how they can interact with us and share their data, their charging behavior data, so that Discom can also plan their load requirements on a going day-ahead basis or for long term. So a lot of data sharing has to happen. And another thing that we are doing with Delhi government and the directions of Delhi government, TPDTL, BRPL and BYPL, we are analyzing 3 depots, and we may go for battery storage and supported by a solar rooftop. So, but these findings have to come out, how beneficial it would be, what sort of investments are required. So all these things will come out for location specific things. With regard to collaboration, our vision is to really have this access to CPO data. CPOs should be able to give access to Discoms. These, of course, these would be smart chargers. So can there be DR programs, or these programs can be built into, so that these benefits can be transferred to CPOs if they are able to participate and help us in mitigating our peaking conditions. So smart metering, a lot of data sharing with regard to traffic movement, load behavior, and automatic access to Discom. The load is going to be huge, the kind of numbers and assessments that we are seeing. So if all get converted to electric trucks, especially on these corridors, for large states this load is going to be huge. But we had some interaction with C40 a few days back. They told us that for trucking, they have a 120 megawatt or so for Delhi, whole of Delhi. So Discoms can plan for these concentrated small loads, but for vast loads on major highways, so it has to be done in tandem with transmission planning, because And of course, CPOs have to partner with DISCOMs in mitigating load requirements. So demand response has to be there.
Okay, thank you. GIZ has recently did one pilot on the on the second life repurposing battery with the connecting with the battery energy storage and the solar roof for the Surat Althan depot. We happy to share the details also for you to understand. Now to Sanya, to you. We are speaking about the demand estimations and also the energy estimations. You have your experience on the current corridor which you're working on the Mumbai-Pune. Can you share some details with respect to the R integration on that, and also on the demand estimation, as what Mr. Sunil was also asking about, to how you do see this and what results you are getting out of this with your research?
Sure. Thank you, Shirish. So I think I echo both my co-panelists, Mr. Lalit's points as well as Mr. Sunil's points. One talked about that it should be a very data-driven approach. So we are looking at the Bangalore-Mumbai corridor, and we're looking at it from a whole corridor perspective, and also to approach it from the standpoint of data. We have divided the corridor across 6 subsections. It is Tumkur, Chitradurga, to Hubli, to Belgavi, to Kolhapur, to Pune, to Mumbai. And we are analyzing each of those subsections in their own totality to see what the demand on those subsections are, what are the energy estimation on those subsections, and what is the possibility of integrating RE on those subsections, which in totality will give us what the corridor is estimated at in terms of demand, in terms of energy capacity. And we're also looking at integrating the charge point operators and the DISCOMs over there and the regulators to see how best we can basically support the energy estimation requirement that is coming from that corridor. So that is the approach we are going forward with. We will be definitely happy to share the results as soon as we have progressed further into the study. We have started with the process of demand aggregation first, and henceforward moving forward to the energy part of it. So yeah, that is our approach. And I think the corridor of focus here is also, I would like to highlight that 2 of those subsections are part of PSA's ZET priority corridors. So I think it falls into a well stated picture of how India wants to move forward with. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. So question to you, Dipal. You represent Brugg here, who is a high power charging technology company, and with your experience into as a Swiss company and the global experience, how do you see the major barriers with respect to high power charging, and what India should keep in mind going forward, because we are parallelly electrifying our passenger vehicles and we are parallelly electrifying our freight, and as what Mr. Goyal said in the beginning, the transition he expects much faster than what we're expecting as a logistics provider, if you're saying. How do you see this? What are the major kind of barriers do you see in, and what India should keep in mind?
Great. So I think I consider this as a great opportunity to all of us, that to make a safe, reliable, efficient and environment-friendly charging infrastructures. We are all in same opinion, more or less, that DC charging infrastructure or public charging infrastructures has to be a DC. So that is one of the main reasons. So more or less all people are in same opinion. Coming back to electric trucks or electric buses, you know that most of the places we find that it is a 240 kilowatt high power charging cable systems are there and DC charging infrastructures are there. But majority time we experience that even though it is high power, but they are not drawing more than 100 amps, or sometimes it is limited up to 200 amps. So it is taking very longer time to get charged electric buses or electric trucks. What is our objective is, that the way they are refilling the petrol or gas, same way they should come out on charging stations and they should leave the vehicles within the 10 to 15 minutes. And it is possible, believe me. We can definitely improve the overall competitiveness of charging infrastructures and vehicle side also. So right now, each vehicles, whether it is electric trucks or buses, are having 2 parallel circuits within the bus. So that required 2 parallel system at charging infrastructure side also, which we could prevent. That will also lower down the temperature within the vehicle side. That will also lower down the temperature at charging infrastructure side. because the technology is available in non-cooled system up to 604 amperes peak currents without any external cooling systems, and it has a performance of already 3 to 4 years within India and abroad also. In addition, liquid cooling system is also available up to 850 ampere rated current. So we can complete a charging of electric trucks that can run at least 400 to 500 kilometers in single charging. And that will also lower down the cost of charging. That will also lower down the maintenance cost. And overall, it will get a better ROI, whether it is a charge point operators or vehicle side. So we expect we should have the product which has to be dust free. That is number one. And it has to be all weather proof. So IP69 rating is the best rating for India, because more or less we have experienced the failure has happened or charging infrastructure has been interrupted because of the dust and water. Believe me, technology is available. We can bring down, or we could achieve 95% failure overcome only with the two factors if we could address these two topics. So that is my opinion for that.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Goyal, we spoke about what is required and what is already available, and with respect to technology, how this envisions also for the future. But as we speak, you are already running this truck on the, I believe, Mumbai-Pune. Yeah. So what do you see, what are the current challenges as a logistics service provider, what you are currently facing, and the key major highlights if you want to share specifically on this?
Yes.
And I'm so sorry. What do you may feel that this is more faster adoption than what we all thinking right now?
Yeah. So the major challenge which we faced was the charging infrastructure. We initially thought that it will give us one single charge can take us to Pune. So we first put up two charging points, one at Chakan and one at Nhava Sheva. But then later on we realized that the Pune Ghat, it was not able to take the load. So we had to put another charger. So 3 chargers just to run a single truck, which is like almost 50% of the cost of the vehicle which we had to incur. Secondly, then we realized, as we were not even aware, the electricity charges. The time at the time what you use, the daytime it is lower and the other time it is. But as a service provider, I cannot control that. It is not in my hand to charge at a particular time. It is the entire cycle when the vehicle approaches and all. Third thing, what we feel, Bombay-Pune is a proper corridor because there are no infrastructure challenges per se. When you talk about no entry and other issues, like when the one good corridor would have been Nhava Sheva-Vapi. There's a very high volume corridor, but thanks to this no entry problems at Thane, we get only 6 hours just to pass cross Mumbai city. So Pune we thought was a good corridor because of the there were no challenges for that. But the challenges at the port. So we basically use this vehicle to move EXIM containers. So the time taken at the port to load and the time taken at the other end to offload, these were the challenges. So we had anticipated, let's say, 1 trip per day, but it was not coming because of the infrastructure problems. But over a period of time, we have overcome these challenges. Like third infrastructure was put up by some other agency at Khalapur. People are coming forward again and again now, like we are in talk, as I mentioned. There are 4 or 5 agencies which approached us now who are willing to give us vehicles with a battery model, that separate battery, and you just do the capex on trucks. So we have learned a lot on over a period of time, and बोलते ना कि problems अपने आप solution देना शुरू कर देते हैं. So we have come out with some solutions where we are now able to achieve what we had anticipated, and that's the reason I said that now I feel that implementation will be much faster because some solutions have already come. Some solutions, like all of us sitting here, we were discussing and have come. So I feel it's a great future for EV vehicles in India in the next 2
Thank you
years.
so much. We are also running short of time. I would like to open the floor for the discussion. Maybe 2-3 questions, quick questions, your name and whom you're directing to. Yes, please, Mr.
Sir, in India, 90% of the transport sector is...
Your name, sir?
Girish.
Yes.
90% of the transport sector is the unorganized sector. So firstly, the national logistic policy has to introduce to bring them all the transporters under the one organized sector. The urbanization or the ruralization, that is very important. The trucks are moving on the road, not on the urban area, the rural area also. The poor infrastructure. The urbanization is good, going on, very good. But ruralization is also very important. We have to see that. Intermodal connectivity, rail, road, and port connectivity is very important. Corridor is okay, fine, but corridor is not close to the rail or the seaport or the road. So connectivity is very important with that. Insurance premium. EV insurance premium is very high as compared to the diesel engine. So some policies to be introduced so that the premium, the government should make some control on the insurance premium because the battery high cost of the parts, that is very important. Road tax, very important. All state governments, some are giving exemptions, some are levying 1%, some 10%. So this some Niti Ayog should introduce some road tax policy on that. Thank you.
Yeah, regarding your questions on I think there's already national logistics plans are there with respect to Gati Shakti, and the intermodal connectivity has already been taken up, and I'm sure they're taking up the work regarding this. But anything on the question? Yes.
Very good question, but definitely we'll try to come back to you with more what has recently happened. But before I answer his question, I want to just sum up what in the second round of conversation you had is about power. When we are talking about a large number of vehicles who are not going to use diesel and petrol tomorrow are going to increase on highways. Who is going to fill them, charge them, swap them, or give them an anchor point? In this conversation, the negative part you can say, or the part of the parcel of my position and profile is I can't be sweeter all the time. I have to be bitter and time have to be very kind. It is not possible for us to have all stakeholder, fleet operator, charge point operator, and all other OEMs to create an infrastructure which serves that increasing number of vehicles. Until and unless the tariff, what you say is, the grid connectivity, how we will transit, you're going to talk about a very huge number of vehicles who are going to charge from somewhere. A huge wiring transmission, which is per kilometer into crores, is going to be there. It is not possible if you do not generate a third generation of petrol pump. So the 3G station which I wanted to sum up is the solution, not my solution or my innovation, is the solution for industry that you will have to have at least a 3000 kilowatt hour dispensing power station, which starts with 800 kilowatt hour from the coal grid, turns out to be 800 adding up with solar, then 800 by adding a vertical turbine from divider, and last 800 in next 6 years, you will have to add from hydrogen dispensing or hydrogen micro electrolyzer. This together brings to you a third generation. First generation is petrol pump, second generation is petrol pump, LNG, CNG, and 1 or 2 more fuels, which are not prominently used. This third generation is going to upgrade into, what I'm sharing with you is the National Master Plan of Viksit Bharat of Energy Transition. These stations are going to upgrade into 5th generation by 2047, which will not have that 800 kilowatt hour thermal grid. So that 100% green power to all these vehicles who are going to be dispensing in all weathers and conditions. If your solar is not working, your hydrogen electrolyzer will be able to give you 800 kilowatt hour. And if solar and wind both are not working, then you will be able to burn same hydrogen in the generator. So that third generation, I think, is the solution. We are not in position to do transmission of all this requirement by the wiring and by increasing the load on the coal grid.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, 1 or 2 last questions, maybe. Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, just very quick question, and I want
your
to ask
name, please.
My name is Kaustav Bosavi. The question is for Ashok ji, and Ashok ji, I know that you are the president of ITWA as well. In the last session, we did hear that the traditional LSPs are a little cautious with this technology. We do understand the caveats and the barriers that we have, but unless we actually have the traditional LSPs, start buying into the electric trucks, the transition really won't happen. We're seeing a lot of new age LSPs come into the picture. What is that push that can have these traditional LSPs start moving towards procuring more electric trucks?
So, Kaustav, as everybody knows, that the cost is extremely high, about three and a half times than the normal conventional vehicle. As Synergy mentioned, if the toll can be waived off, I think then we could have some kind of a cushion to buy the vehicle. Because the problem is a customer doesn't pay us anything extra when I'm using an electric vehicle. He still wants the cost to be the same as a ICE vehicle. So for that reason, then if there's another thing I wanted to request was carbon credit. I don't know how does it work, but whether that carbon credit can be passed on to us. Financing is a challenge right now. People are not financing vehicles. So if some more incentives can be given, I think the toll can be a very big incentive. It's actually 10 rupees a kilometer now. So that incentive, it can be passed on to us. I think it can be adopted faster because the cost of operations will go down, so the capex can be taken care of.
Okay. Just last question from the yes, sir. Your last question.
Question is, sir, just want to know, you told power sector some funds are there.
Your name, sir?
Ravindra Mohan Charzone. Which are those funds? Because as a CPO, when we approach the other DISCOMs, either we have to fund that development for 11 kV of the depot or the high power charge station on this. Which are those funds specifically which as a BIPL you are tapping to bring the power near to the charging station? Central funds.
The fund that I was talking about is Power Sector Development Fund. It is contributed by DISCOMs through deviation settlement charges or penalties. So we are trying to tap it too in case these things can come in support of mitigating the peak load that is going to come up from EV charging. So that is subject to approvals from government and other regulatory bodies. It is not for specific network upgradation or putting up a transformer or line or energizing a connection. It is in larger context of mitigating the issues at a DISCOM level. So that fund is lying idle. So PFI has done a study. Maybe this thing will come out in public domain very soon. So through government level, we will try to tap onto that fund so that some projects can be developed which help all customers of a DISCOM, not a particular set of customers.
It is more useful for the city or it can be used for highways also?
So it depends on which state to state. In Delhi, we have some sort of provision. In other states, it may not be there. Okay.
Just wanted to know.
So it's a regulatory provision, so it has to be deployed somehow. So subject to regulatory and government approvals.
One more fund is there, which I wish to add to it, is National Infrastructure Development Fund, which is notified by our Honorable Minister of Finance in the budget 2025. It has 3 very basic eligibility criteria that the project should be in the PPP mode. The state can apply for that fund. The state government can apply for that fund. The capital expenditure is around 1.5 lakh crore rupees, outlay for 50 years, interest-free loan. It is also to be completed by 2027. It's this year budget, and as of now, I think 2 states has applied for it. If you need more details, my office can provide you.
Okay, so we will call off this session now. Thank you so much. We were having certain more questions, but I believe in the interest of time, we have to. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you so much for being
A huge round of applause. I quickly request Tanya Mittal, Transport and Infrastructure Advisor, GIZ, to sum it up in a minute, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you for such an engaging discussion. I would like to summarize just key takeaways from this session discussion over here, which are very, very prominent to be taken ahead. One is we require definitely a 3rd generation of petrol pump, as has been highlighted by Abhijit Sinha sir, because we cannot put a lot of pressure on the existing infrastructure, and definitely it may not be possible for the existing part of wire lines to support my EVs, which are going to come in the future. Another one is definitely we require also to be thinking about the rural part of India and not only in the urban parts, as has been mentioned and raised by one of the participant over here. The third one is we learn from our pilots, we learn from the challenges, being on the charging infrastructure, the charging points, we already experienced, and then may come out with the more pilots, maybe on the third pilot or the fourth pilot with hydrogen, or third one which already Chennai Trichy has experienced. We may learn and more and definitely to run pilots on all of those corridors which has been identified on the top list by PSA and also the MHI. We can take them forward from the discussions here. So I understand there are currently there are many challenges, either with insurances, either with the road taxes or the standards or the incentives or the charging or the deployment, definitely. But we definitely we look forward that we will collaborate together to enhance it, and we'll come up with certain solutions which my EVs can run on in a more efficient, reliable manner. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. And once again, a huge round of applause to all our esteemed panelists to join us today. I request the moderator to kindly present all the panelists with a token of appreciation. Can you please take for the photo of sir? We'll have. Kaustubh, can you please join us to also give a token of appreciation to Mr. Shirish? Thank you to GIZ for hosting the session, and the token of appreciation to GIZ as well. The session was co-hosted by RMI and GIZ. A huge round of applause to the session hosts as well. I request everyone to join in front of the stage for a small photo op.